Well, Razorback fans, the offense for the Razorbacks have had its moments, but they're still not putting the ball in the end zone. Why is this? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday, midway point of the week. And I know we'll have a lot to look forward to this weekend, not only for Razorback football, but a little Razorback basketball action, as Bud Walton would be packed for a team called Kansas that's coming to town, the number one team in the country. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff to get into for that. But I wanted to continue looking at the football side of things, because as the weeks go on, it comes from a Monday and a Tuesday, which is still kind of like reactions from the previous weekend. Monday's a lot of just the reaction to the game itself. Tuesdays are normally the reaction to Sam Pittman's press conference and the updates from it. And then we hit to the Wednesday point and start looking ahead a little bit, but also looking at everything as a whole, as the season and where it comes into play. And I started doing that, and I started looking through all of the different notes and game things that you could look at as far as stats and matchups, what's gotten better, what has gotten worse, and everything. And I talked a little bit about Mississippi State, but maybe I didn't really get into the minutia of Arkansas. It's pretty insane when I look at the statistics and look at where Arkansas ranks in certain statistics and see that in total offense, Arkansas is ranked 4th in the SEC in total offense, 22nd overall in total offense, with 455.1 yards per game. It's pretty good, I'd say. Rushing offense is at number 4 in the SEC, and passing offense is at number 5 in the SEC. It's kind of crazy, too, because rushing offense at 4th is 47th in the country, but yet passing offense at 5th is 26th in the country. So look at those numbers, and it's like, okay, well, hey, the times that the Razorback offense, number-wise, has done a pretty good job. But then you look at the scoring offense, which last time I checked, that's how they judge who wins games and who loses games. And Arkansas' scoring offense is 11th in the SEC and 61st in the country. Now imagine that where in total offense you're 4th, but in scoring offense you're 11th. A lot of that doesn't add up. Well, what contributes to it? Well, I can go ahead and tell you the main thing. This thing called red zone offense. Arkansas is 16th, dead last in the SEC in red zone offense, and they're 115th in the country in red zone offense. That's disgusting. That's terrible. Arkansas is only scoring 75% of the time when they're in the red zone. 75%. That includes field goals and touchdowns, everything. 75% of the time they're within the 20, they're scoring points. That's it right there. Because, listen, Arkansas is 2nd in the SEC in first downs, 6th in the country. They're also done a good job, but people may not think of it, but passes intercepted. That's not the one I was looking at. Third down conversion. Sorry. Messed up my stats there. Third down conversion percentage. Still number 2 in the country. Or number 2 in the SEC, number 9 in the country. Time of possession, they're 6th in the SEC. So I'm looking at these numbers and I'm like, this is insane. This is insane. How is this happening? How is it that you have a team that's able to get as much yardage and as much production as the Razorback football team is able to do, but having nothing to show for it in the scoring column? It kind of reminds me in a way, folks, of runners in scoring position. And how many runners got stranded? Now, Razorback baseball fans can kind of relate to that from this past season. I think that was one of the biggest frustrations that came along, where you get there, you get in position, you're right there knocking on the door, but you fall flat. You hit into a double play, or you strike out swinging with bases loaded. Something happens to where you set everything up to score, but you don't score. And it is something that I don't think I would have expected. Now, there's a lot of factors that can go into this as to why. A lot of cases, it could be just missed field goals, because Arkansas has had some missed field goals this year. A lot of it could be going on forward on fourth downs when it's fourth and short and missing it, which Arkansas has done and has missed quite a few times. It could be, again, various other reasons and all of that. But there's got to be a way to have the killer instinct of getting the job done and scoring. To me, that's what it comes down to. Now, you may say it sounds simple, or maybe it's a simplistic way of looking at it, and who knows, maybe you're right. But folks, if you're good enough to have the production, if you're good enough to get the yardage, if you're good enough and balanced enough where you're fourth in rushing and then fifth in passing in the SEC, and you're fourth overall in the SEC in total offense and the yardage production, if you're good enough for that, you have to be good enough to score. And it's a cliche, but still, if Arkansas's offensive production translated into scoring like it should, Arkansas could be undefeated right now. Well, maybe that's being a little too dramatic. They've had one loss. That's been the issue. They're averaging 29 points a game. 29. And honestly, I'm shocked that it's that high. Imagine if they didn't have that UAPB game at the beginning of the year, folks. Imagine if they didn't have that 70-point performance, where they would be and what that would look like. There has got to be the way to develop the killer instinct that is needed. Because these next few games, folks, especially this one against Mississippi State, this is time now. This is time. If there was ever a time when you were going to be able to put it together offensively, it has to be this weekend. Not because of just, it's the next game. It's because you are going up against a team in Mississippi State that has a horrendous defense. Like, their defense is dead last in every major category, except for red zone defense. They rank 15th, so second to last. So you've got the dead last red zone offense going up against the second to last red zone defense. You hope something is going to give. Something has to give. You're doing good things, and this is what's frustrating about this Razorback football team this year. You're doing some good things. You really are. We may not always say it. We may not always appreciate it, but you are. I mean, you have gone out there and took care of business against the top 5 team. There's not many teams out there that can say they beat a top 5 team. It's true. You gave Texas A&M all that they could handle. And honestly, in the SEC, it was their closest game. You gave them everything. Now, OSU, you laid an egg, there's no doubt. But you took care of business against Auburn on the road. You've done some good things. But it's the most important things that you lack. And that's why it's so hard to trust this team. And that's why it's this balance of being, like, I want to be pissed off and angry, but also be understanding and realistic. Like, you can look at the negatives or look at the positives. But I continue to find myself just continuing to get more and more frustrated. And here's the main reason why. It's like anything in life, where if you know of someone, or you see someone, or you work with somebody, however you want to put it, that does everything right, but get over the finish line, that puts together the greatest presentation, that does their research, that does their bullet points, that has all their graphics, that has Everything's set up to meet with the big bosses on this big project you're about to sign, and they get up there and they completely crap their pants and they sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. It's like, you just ruined that. All that stuff that built up to that, the time it matters the most, and the places that it matters the most, you fail. And at the end of the day, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you do in the games if you don't win the games. You can have an improved offense, an improved defense. You can have so much going for you, but it doesn't matter in the end if you don't get the job done. There's no set reason or explanation to be like, oh, this is why Arkansas can't score. I don't even know if Bobby Petrino knows that. But if you can gain some confidence against Mississippi State, if you can start figuring out ways to put it in the end zone, whether it's with big plays or punching it in from the goal line, whatever it's going to take. But if you can get that confidence, then maybe you could start building something. But right now, seeing those numbers, it's kind of alarming. You're better than that. You do everything right. Just try to do the most important thing right. This whole thing called, scoring. Yeah, that would help a lot. We'll talk about the reasons why Arkansas should dominate Mississippi State and why it's important for them to. Coming up next here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast, so stay with us. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't really actively searching for a new job, but might be open to that perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking at the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that the small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to hire. And LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process that much easier. They just even launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I mentioned it. Arkansas needs to dominate and should dominate Mississippi State. But it's never that easy, is it? I went through some research. When I say I went through some research, I had buddies of mine go through some research because they just brought it to my attention. And I thought it was pretty incredible, but also pretty alarming. Arkansas opens, I think they opened as an 8-point favorite in this game against Mississippi State. I think it's maybe down to a 7-point favorite, something like that. But a touchdown favorite at least on the road against an SEC opponent, right? Right. Well, here's a little fun stat for you. The last time Arkansas was favored by 7 points or more against an SEC opponent on the road and covered, I know that's a lot of stats getting thrown out there, but the last time Arkansas was favored by 7 or more points on the road in the SEC and covered was in 1998 against South Carolina. That's how long it's been. Now, there's been times that they've been favorites on the road, but they haven't covered, which I know is tough to do. But there's times they've even been heavy favorites on the road and still did not find a way to cover. So it's hard. It really is. I mean, think back. How many times have you seen Arkansas dominate a road SEC team? Or at least win going away? Think back to like 2010 South Carolina on the road. I remember they beat them pretty handedly. I remember, I think it was, that was like early 2000s, maybe against Alabama. Was it Alabama on the road? No, it was Auburn on the road. Arkansas always beat Auburn on the road, it seemed like, but they took advantage of that. There's just been times it's happened, but not very often. But this is, once again, a golden opportunity. We talked about it last week with the setup with LSU. This is another golden opportunity, but for a different reason. This golden opportunity comes in the form of a matchup. It comes in the form of helping you out with your weakest stages and your weakest problems, while also giving a good test to the things and continuing to get those reps in of things that you've been decent enough at. And what I mean by that is like what we talked about before. I won't get into it again. But you got Arkansas, who has a struggling offense, and Mississippi State, who has the worst defense. You would think, logically speaking, that Arkansas should have some success offensively against them, logically speaking. Neither team is necessarily great at getting off the field on third downs, things like that. But overall, Arkansas should have the advantage in that. Arkansas has given up a lot of sacks this year. In fact, they're 11th in the SEC at sacks allowed. Well, Mississippi State is dead last, 131st in sacks. So if you've had a problem protecting Taylon Green, statistically speaking, that shouldn't be a problem in this game. So you should have protection. You should have offense. You should have passing. You should have rushing. You should have all. That's the way it should be. Now, Mississippi State's offense, if you just look at the numbers itself, they're 12th in the SEC at total offense, 15th in rushing offense, and then 9th in passing offense. Mississippi State, under Jeff Lebby, they're going to be an offense that can beat you, that can really beat you. And the Van Buren kid, who has been playing at quarterback, Michael Van Buren Jr., has kind of provided a little bit of a spark. He's still completing just a little over 50% of his passes, but 792 yards, 6 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. Because they also had Blake Shapen, who had completed over 70% of his passes for 974 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Like there's a lot to be concerned about there. And it could go, it's not to say it's going to be an easy game at all, but it could go awry for you if you're not careful. But I want you to just show that you can be that team to where the pressure's on you, because it is. The pressure is on Arkansas for them to come out and to perform. Mississippi State's just like, hey, no one's expecting us to win. We're 1-6. No one thinks we have a chance. We're at home. And honestly, with the rest of the SEC schedule for Mississippi State, this is probably their best chance to get an SEC win. So you have to be able to perform like you're supposed to. You have to be able to perform the way you should. But will you? That is the ultimate question, isn't it? But I want to see a team that dominates. How nice would that be, folks? You wake up, you watch College Game Day, and then you tune in to the Razorbacks of Mississippi State, and by the beginning of the fourth quarter, feel good. I think I'm going to turn off the TV a little early and go out and mow the lawn because Arkansas is up by 4 scores. Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be great. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I'm hopeful. I am hopeful. Talk about an Arkansas commitment for the 2025 class and why I really don't care. Coming up next here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, so stay with us. All right, folks, I got to tell you all about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel today. So, hey, sometimes you get that hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets themselves. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. So check it out today. It's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The Razorbacks got a commitment yesterday to a tight end out of California, named Gavin Garretson. 6'7", 240. All right, cool. He's a 3-star player. Didn't exactly have any major offers. Had an offer to Arkansas, obviously, but Cal was really the only Power 4 conference team that gave him any offers, and the other ones really weren't anything of note. But that's the 23rd commitment for the 2025 class. And in all honesty, Morgan Turner being on the recruiting trail, who knows? Maybe he could be a good player at some point. Maybe he could be a good developer. Maybe he could just be a freak athlete. I don't know really what to expect out of him, but Arkansas got him. But I don't really care. And that's not against the kid. It's not even against the Razorbacks, and it's not against anybody who does care. But I have just become so whatever about high school recruiting. I don't really care anymore. The only thing I care about at this point in time is the transfer portal. You may not like that, but it's the truth. There's just not any players anymore, at least ones of note, that stick around. I mean, if you get a 4 or 5 star player, what are the chances that you have them still at year 3, regardless of how much they're playing, regardless of how well they're doing? I mean, I kind of always make the joke of it, but like Dylan Gabriel, I thought he had a great season in Oklahoma and he transferred to Oregon. Sometimes things like that happens. So, again, people can make a big deal out of the recruiting class and be like, oh, Arkansas, you're only 29th in the 29th in the country, which is like probably 14th in the SEC or whatever it is. Oh, it's terrible. It's like it just doesn't have the same luster, doesn't have the same ring to it anymore. And that's fine. Doesn't have to. But I'm more focused on what Arkansas does in the immediate future because we have no idea what's going to happen. Like after that Missouri game, man, on that Friday afternoon, we have no clue what's going to go down. At least not at this point. No idea how the season's going to go or how the offseason's going to go or what's going to be the next big move or anything like that. So until that time happens, you just got to hit that portal, baby. Hit that portal and get as many players as you can. But hey, I'm glad that he's coming to Arkansas. That's great and all. I'm glad all the players are coming to Arkansas in this recruiting class, but let's wait a couple of years and see how many of them are actually still with the Razorbacks by that point in time. May sound dramatic, but it's the truth. It's just how it is. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.